You know that feeling, that sense that there's just so much out there. I mean, books, articles, wisdom traditions, all the self-help stuff, and they're all kind of promising the key to a better life
Mm.
or more success, deeper connections.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you look at it all and it's just a lot. You're thinking, where do I even begin? It's overwhelming.
Exactly. Or maybe you feel like, okay, you've read some things, you know some things,
Right.
but actually applying it consistently, that feels like trying to catch smoke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The application is the hard part.
It is. And it taps into that like deep human desire, doesn't it? To not just know stuff, but to be
Yeah.
genuinely effective, really capable
Like
in life.
truly capable. Yeah.
So what if there was a kind of roadmap, not just from one single guru or philosophy, but
Yeah.
synthesized from a whole bunch of different insights, a
Yeah.
path to being not just, book smart, but genuinely intelligent in how you live your life, manage your habits, deal with people.
That's a really good way to frame it. Yeah. It is about navigating all that information and finding something practical, something you can actually use.
Like the difference between just owning a bookshelf full of books
Yeah.
and actually like living the wisdom inside them.
Exactly that. Using the library, not just having it.
Okay, good. Because that exact yearning, that search for a clear path, is what led us to the source material we're diving into today. We've been digging into this really interesting collection. It's basically a curated reading list with some supporting docs all focused on this core idea, the journey of becoming what they call an intelligent human.
And right off the bat, it's important to say the sources are really clear about what they mean by that. They make a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
It's not just about cognitive smarts, your IQ score, how many facts you can remember. That's not the main thing here.
Right. If it was just IQ, this would be a totally different conversation. The definition that kind of emerges from these sources, it paints a much richer picture, doesn't it?
It really does. It's this blend. Okay, yes, intellectual sharpness is part of it, sure. But just as important, maybe even more important, are things like emotional intelligence, social skills, and this is critical, cultivating specific, consistent habits that support your personal growth.
So it's about applying it,
Yeah.
taking what you know, what you feel, how you interact with others, and applying it wisely, deliberately,
Right.
like every day.
That's the core of it, that conscious, consistent application across all these different parts of life. That's what defines intelligence in this context. And the sources, they present it not as some endpoint you reach, like, okay, I'm intelligent now.
Right. Not a destination.
No, it's a dynamic roadmap, a journey, and it's built from these principles that have been distilled from a whole range of pretty impactful books and ideas.
Okay, so that sets up our mission for this deep dive then. We're going to unpack that exact roadmap laid out in these sources. We'll pull out the key nuggets of wisdom, the practical steps you can actually take.
The actionable stuff.
Yeah, the actionable stuff. And try to understand how all these different ideas, everything from making your bed to understanding power dynamics, how they actually fit together, how they form a cohesive path for personal development.
Think of it as getting the highlights, maybe. A shortcut through a lot of reading, but one that gives you the core principles and, crucially, the why behind them.
Right. So you can start applying them yourself without necessarily needing to read, 20 different books first.
Although you might want to, once you see how it connects.
Exactly. Seeing the framework might make you want to dive deeper into some of the original.
It's about giving you that framework, that sense of how these ideas connect so you have a clearer direction, which honestly feels super valuable today with just the sheer volume of information coming at us.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, let's get into it. Let's unpack this roadmap. Now, the sources start in a place that honestly might seem a bit basic, almost mundane.
Level. Yeah.
But they really insist that this is the absolute foundation, the bedrock, the prerequisite for everything else that follows. And that's mastering your time and building effective habits.
And what's really interesting is why they put this first. The sources basically argue that if you don't get a handle on your time, if you don't establish those consistent positive habits, well, any other effort you make trying to learn more, be more emotionally resilient, improve your social skills, it's probably going to falter.
It's like trying to build a house on sand.
Exactly. This part is the engine and the fuel for the whole journey. Without that discipline and structure here, everything else just becomes kind of sporadic, hard to sustain.
And they pull from some really heavy hitters to make this point, don't they? We're talking James Clear's Atomic Habits,
A huge one.
Robin Sharma's The 5 a.m. Club, Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit.
Understanding the mechanics.
Richard Cook's The 80-20 Principle, and surprisingly maybe even Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Body gets mentioned here.
Yeah, which seems like just fitness, but there's a deeper reason. So let's dig into the core principles they pull out for this foundational piece. From Atomic Habits, the big idea, the really powerful one, is that compounding effect of small changes.
The 1% improvements.
Exactly. It's not about these huge dramatic gestures that you probably can't keep up anyway. It's about focusing on tiny incremental improvements. Just getting 1% better each day.
Sounds tiny.
It does, day to day, but over weeks, months, years. These little steps accumulate into really remarkable results. Think about reading just, say, 10 pages a day, or doing a quick 5-minute workout. Seems like nothing in the moment.
But over a year, that's a lot of pages, a lot of workouts.
Precisely. It builds.
Yeah.
And the 5 a.m. Club then provides a potential structure for embedding these small improvements.
Yeah.
It introduces this concept of the victory hour.
Right, getting up super early, 5 a.m.
Ideally, yeah. The idea is that hour before the world starts making demands on you is purely for self-improvement. And they suggest a 20-20-20 split.
Okay, what's that?
20 minutes of intense exercise, get the body awake. 20 minutes for meditation, prayer, quiet reflection, center the mind. And 20 minutes for learning, reading, studying something new. The principle is just carving out that protected, uninterrupted time purely for your growth.
Okay, I see how that connects. And then the power of habit comes in.
Yeah, Duhigg's book adds the sort of how it works science underneath it all. It explains the habit loop. Cue, routine, reward.
Cue, routine, reward. Got it.
Understanding that basic mechanism is key. The cue triggers the routine leads to the reward, and that reward reinforces the loop, making the whole thing automatic over time.
So if you want to change a bad habit,
you don't necessarily fight the cue or ignore the reward. You focus on substituting the routine. The sources really stress this. You got to understand your own loops, the why and how of your automatic behaviors, if you want to intentionally build habits that actually serve your goals, like becoming more effective or intelligent.
That makes sense. Understand the machinery first. And where does the 80-20 principle fit into this habit and time stuff?
Pareto's law. So the 80-20 principle teaches you to identify the vital few, the 20% of activities that are likely yielding 80% of your desired results. When you apply that to managing your time and building habits for growth, it means focusing your limited energy on the highest impact things. For this journey, that might mean carving out time for deep learning, maybe practicing a core skill that really moves the needle, or strategic networking. Instead of getting bogged down in low-value busy work. Stuff that makes you feel productive but doesn't actually contribute much to your long-term goal of becoming more intelligent or capable.
Ruthless prioritization.
Pretty much. And finally, the 4-hour body. Why is that in this foundational section?
Yeah, I was wondering. Seems like an outlier.
Well, the sources include it because they recognize that the mind-body connection is just inseparable. Optimizing your physical health through, efficient diet, effective exercise, good recovery. It's not just about looking good or physical fitness in isolation.
It affects your brain, too.
Massively. It impacts your mental clarity, your energy levels throughout the day, your mood, your resilience to stress. Having a strong, healthy body gives you the physical foundation, the sheer vitality, to consistently apply all the other principles we're talking about. It supports your thinking, your emotional stability, everything.
Okay, that ties it together. So pulling from all those principles, Atomic Habits, 5 a.m. Club, Power of Habit, 80-20, 4-hour body, what are the concrete, do this now steps the sources highlight for nailing down this foundation?
All right, actionable steps. First one, implement a structured morning routine. They really do lean into that 5 a.m. suggestion, or at least waking early enough for an uninterrupted block. And using that 20-20-20 rule is a strong recommendation. 20 minutes vigorous exercise, 20 minutes quiet reflection, meditation, prayer, 20 minutes focused learning, reading those pages, listening to something useful.
That intentional structure seems key.
Yeah.
What else?
Habit stacking. This comes straight from James Clear. The idea is simple but really effective. Link a new habit you want to build onto an existing habit you already do automatically. Well, the source suggests something like, listen to an educational audiobook, maybe Think and Grow Rich, during your daily commute. You're already commuting, that's the existing habit, so you stacked the learning, the new habit, right on top of it.
Or maybe after I pour my morning coffee existing habit, I immediately read for 20 minutes new habit.
Exactly. It lowers the friction to getting started. Third action. Prioritize using that 80-20 thinking. You need to actively identify which tasks, which learning activities give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of your personal growth goals.
And then,
And then be ruthless about protecting time for those things. That means actively saying no to low-value stuff that eats up time, maybe doom scrolling, unproductive meetings, just passively consuming content. Protect your prime time for deep work, skill building, focused learning.
guard your focus.
Totally. And the final practical step here is maybe the simplest, but vital. Track your habits.
Just write it down.
Yep. Use a journal, a simple spreadsheet, a habit app on your phone, whatever works. Just mark down whether you did your morning routine, read your pages, hit your workout goal, save that money, whatever habits you're building.
Why does that help so much?
As Atomic Habits points out, what gets measured tends to improve. Plus, seeing that streak, checking that box, it actually acts as a reward in the habit loop. It reinforces the behavior and keeps you accountable. You don't want to break the chain.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So this whole first segment, it really hammers home why getting a grip on your time and building these solid habits now is so crucial for becoming more, well, intelligent and effective later on.
Absolutely critical. It's not about just being busier. It's about being incredibly effective and intentional with your time, which is your most finite resource, right?
Right.
Doing this, it frees up mental bandwidth, it builds that essential muscle of self-discipline, it creates momentum, and it gives you the actual structure you need to consistently apply all the other stuff we're going to talk about.
You can have all the potential in the world.
But if you don't have the daily structure to actually express it and grow it, it just stays potential latent, untapped.
Right. It's like building the container, the sturdy framework that allows everything else to actually grow and flourish inside it. Okay. So once that engine of time and habits is humming along, where does the roadmap take us next? It seems to turn inward.
It does. The sources really emphasize the importance of building your inner core. This is the work you do on yourself before you even step out the door, before you engage in any significant way with other people.
Inner work first. Why is that so important?
Well, this whole segment is about laying down a strong internal foundation. Things like cultivating self-awareness, really understanding yourself, bolstering genuine confidence, not just bravado, and developing mental and emotional resilience, the ability to handle setbacks. The argument from the sources is that your internal state isn't just, nice to have. It's the necessary prerequisite for engaging authentically and effectively with the outside world. If you haven't done this inner work, any attempts at mastering social skills or trying to be a leader, they might just ring hollow.
Lack substance.
Exactly. It won't feel real to you or others.
And the reading list they draw on for this inner core work is, wow, it's pretty extensive. Covers a lot of ground.
It really does. It reflects how multifaceted this inner strength thing is. You've got Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Which always sounds intense.
It does. Then Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck.
Ah, the counterintuitive one.
Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, Amy Morin's 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do.
That sounds practical.
Susan Cain's Quiet for Introverts, Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last, and even Dale Carnegie's classic How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. It's quite a lineup, all focused on that inner landscape.
Seriously. So how do the sources kind of distill principles from all that? Let's start with the 48 laws. How does that fit into building a positive inner core? It sounds more external, manipulative.
Yeah, and the sources are actually quite careful about how they position it. They explicitly say it's not included as a manual for becoming Machiavellian.
Okay, good.
Instead, they frame it as a really insightful, if sometimes uncomfortable, exploration of social dynamics, human psychology, how power and influence actually work in the real world. Understanding these laws, even the darker ones, gives you awareness.
Awareness of what?
Of how influence operates, how people might try to influence you, and how your own actions might unintentionally influence others. It's about being wise to these dynamics so you can navigate relationships more effectively and, crucially, ethically. It's not about ruthlessly wielding power, but understanding it exists.
Gotcha. So knowledge for defense and ethical navigation, not offense. What about the 7 habits? That feels more straightforwardly inner core.
Totally. Covey's work provides that vital framework for internal guidance. It's all about living based on principles, not just moods or circumstances. Being proactive, taking responsibility for your life. Defining your mission, your goals, based on your deepest values. understanding integrity.
It's about having that internal compass.
Exactly. Clarifying your core values and using them to guide your choices, making sure your actions line up with what truly matters to you. Your inner world directs your outer actions.
And then Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art, how does that contribute?
It adds this layer of psychological freedom. Manson challenges that constant need for external validation, the endless pursuit of happiness through positive thinking alone. He encourages you to decide what's actually worth caring about, what's truly important to you, based on your values.
And not caring about the rest.
Pretty much. Discerning which problems are meaningful problems worth solving and which are just noise. Embracing discomfort sometimes in pursuit of those meaningful goals, instead of being stopped by fear of judgment or little setbacks. It's about detaching from trivial stuff, which builds a lot of inner freedom and resilience.
Choosing your battles, kind of.
Yeah, or choosing what's worth suffering for, as Manson might put it. Then you have Think and Grow Rich.
A classic, all about mindset, right?
Absolutely. It drills down on the power of your mind. Hill introduces the idea of a definite purpose, having a crystal clear, unwavering goal, and then fueling that with intense desire, persistence, and visualization.
Thinking your way to success.
It's more nuanced, but yeah, the core principle is that your dominant thoughts, especially when they're charged up with emotion and laser focused on a clear goal, exert a powerful influence on your actions and ultimately your reality over time. Cultivating that success-oriented, possibility-focused mindset is a fundamental internal act, according to this source.
Okay. And Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules, that one generated a lot of discussion.
It did. And the sources pull from it a framework for disciplined living, finding meaning even when life is hard, chaotic, or involves suffering. Principles like stand up straight with your shoulders back. It's not just posture advice.
It's psychological, too.
Right. It's a physical manifestation of psychological confidence, facing the world squarely. The book emphasizes taking responsibility, pursuing meaningful goals, things that align with your values, not just what's easy or expedient. Finding strength by confronting challenges directly, ordering your own life first before you try to fix the world. Inner strength comes from discipline and facing difficulty.
And then Amy Morin's book helps you avoid undermining that strength. 13 things mentally strong people don't do.
Exactly. It's like the flip side. It gives really practical insights into common mental traps, those thought patterns and behaviors that sabotage your resilience.
That's what?
Things like dwelling on the past you can't change, resenting other people's success, fearing change itself, feeling like the world owes you something, giving up after the first failure. Recognizing these specific patterns and actively choosing not to engage in them helps you conserve mental energy, build confidence, and keep moving forward.
That sounds incredibly useful. What about quiet?
Quiet is so important because it speaks directly to introverts who often feel like they need to pretend to be extroverts to succeed. Susan Cain highlights the unique strength introverts often possess.
Which are often overlooked.
Totally. Strengths like deep thinking, careful observation, really good listening skills, the ability to focus intensely on deep work. The message is, leverage your natural strengths. Don't burn yourself out trying to be someone you're not. Authenticity, whether you lean introvert or extrovert, is key to inner strength.
That's empowering. And leaders eat last. How does Senec's work fit the inner core theme? It sounds like it's about leading others.
It is, but the sources point out that the foundation of that leadership starts internally. Senec argues that real trust and loyalty are built when leaders, or really anyone in a relationship, consistently prioritize the well-being and safety of others.
Putting others first.
Yeah, creating what he calls a circle of safety, and doing that requires an inner shift first. A willingness to be vulnerable sometimes, to genuinely empathize, to act with integrity even when it's hard or costly. Building trust externally starts with your own internal values and your commitment to service over self-interest.
Makes sense. And finally, Dale Carnegie. How to Stop Worrying. Old school, but still relevant.
Absolutely relevant. It offers these timeless, incredibly practical strategies for managing anxiety and stress. Carnegie focuses on staying in the present moment, dealing with today's challenges today. Breaking problems down into actionable steps instead of getting lost in what-if spirals. Recognizing what you can control and what you can't.
That sounds like freedom.
It really is. Cultivating that inner peace by managing worry effectively frees up so much mental energy for clear thinking and purposeful action. Worry is exhausting.
Wow. Okay. That is a lot of ground covered for building the inner core. Different angles, different authors. But again, the sources don't just leave it a theory, right? They pull out actionable steps.
Definitely. They focus on concrete things you can do.
Yeah.
One core step, straight from 7 Habits, is to clarify your values. Like actually sit down and write out your top 3 to 5 core values. What principles matter most to you? Honesty, growth, compassion, family.
And then use them.
Yes,
Yep.
refer back to them regularly, especially when you have a big decision to make. Ask yourself, does this align with my values? It gives you that internal compass we talked about.
Okay, what else?
Daily visualization, drawing from Think and Grow Rich. Spend maybe just 5 or 10 minutes each day vividly imagining your important goals as if you've already achieved them. Really feel it, see it, hear it, engage your senses. The idea is this practice helps imprint your goals onto your subconscious and builds that unwavering belief and focus.
Practice resilience comes next, using Amy Morin's insights from 13 Things.
Right. So when you face a setback or have a negative thought, you consciously work to reframe it. Instead of thinking, I failed, think, okay, what did I learn? Instead of dwelling on what you can't control, focus immediately on the very next step you can take. It's actively challenging those unhelpful mental habits.
Manage stress effectively, pulling from Carnegie.
Yeah. When a problem feels overwhelming, the action step is break it down. What are the smallest possible steps involved? Write them down. Then just focus on taking the very first step. That shifts you out of feeling paralyzed and into action, which itself reduces stress.
For introverts, the action step from quiet.
It's to leverage introversion. Stop beating yourself up for not being the life of the party if that drains you. Instead, lean into your strengths. Prepare thoughtfully before meetings or conversations. Focus on deep listening. Contribute strategically when you have something valuable to say. Value quality of interaction over sheer quantity.
Play to your strengths.
Exactly. And finally, using ethical influence, drawing lessons from the 48 laws, again, emphasizing ethical.
Right. Not manipulation.
No, it's about awareness. When you're in social situations, pay attention to the underlying dynamics. Understand the importance of things like timing, reading unspoken cues, maybe knowing when to step back versus step forward, like never outshine the master. Apply this understanding not to control people, but to interact more wisely, more respectfully, always checking your actions against your own clarified values. That ethical application is what distinguishes this from just being manipulative.
Okay, so the big picture message from this whole inner core segment is?
It's powerful. It's basically that your internal state, your confidence, your clarity, your resilience, your self-awareness, your integrity, this is the absolute bedrock. These qualities project outwards much more powerfully and authentically than any superficial technique or mask you try to put on. What you cultivate inside dictates the energy you bring to every interaction, the decisions you make, and ultimately how people perceive and respond to you. This inner work isn't just nice, it's fundamental.
Okay. Foundation of time and habits. Check. Strong inner core. Check. Where does the roadmap lead us after that heavy internal lifting?
Logically, it moves outward. The sources then focus on the idea of projecting capability, or as they sometimes phrase it, attracting others.
Attracting others. That sounds interesting. Is this about dating?
Not necessarily, no. Or at least not only. Attracting here is much broader. It's about building presence, cultivating a certain kind of charisma, maybe, and projecting traits that naturally draw people towards you in any context, professional, social, whatever. Traits like reliability, competence, confidence, self-respect.
So it's about how you signal your capability to the world.
Exactly. It's how that inner work starts to become visible externally.
Okay. And what sources are informing this part?
It's an interesting mix. They pull from Admiral William McRaven's famous commencement speech, which became the book Make Your Bed.
Ah, yeah, I know that one. Simple but powerful.
Very. The 4-hour body makes another appearance here. And they also draw on principles associated with an entrepreneurial mindset, like you might find in books similar to Scott Gerber's Never Get a Real Job.
Okay, let's break that down. Make your bed. How does that relate to projecting capability?
It seems almost trivially simple, right? Make your bed. But the sources highlight the profound message behind it. The power of small daily disciplines. When you start your day by completing one task perfectly, even a small one like making your bed, you get an immediate sense of accomplishment.
A small win.
Exactly. A small win right at the start. This builds momentum. It encourages you to tackle the next task and the next. But crucially, beyond the personal feeling, that consistency and attention to detail, even in small things, signals something to others over time. It signals reliability. Discipline. It shows you're the kind of person who follows through.
It's a nonverbal signal of competence.
Precisely. And the 4-hour body principle comes back because, well, Your physical health and how you carry yourself are undeniable parts of how you project capability. Taking care of your body, effective exercise, good nutrition isn't just about vanity or longevity.
It affects your presence.
Absolutely. It impacts your energy levels, your posture, your overall vitality. That physical well-being reflects self-respect and discipline. These are qualities people intuitively find attractive, and that signal you have the energy and capacity to handle things. It's the physical manifestation of that inner strength.
And the entrepreneurial mindset part, from sources like never get a real job.
Yeah, the idea there is about cultivating a certain way of thinking and acting. Being proactive, not reactive. Being resourceful, figuring things out. Constantly looking for solutions instead of just problems. Taking ownership.
Well,
Demonstrating a degree of independence and self-reliance.
like a problem solver.
Exactly. Projecting that kind of ambition, capability, and willingness to take initiative makes you someone others want on their team or want to collaborate with or just be around. It signals that you can create value, that you can handle things.
Okay, so what are the practical, actionable steps the sources pull from those ideas for projecting capability?
First one is super concrete. Ensure you have a daily discipline win. Start every single day by completing one small, non-negotiable task perfectly. Making your bed is the classic example from McRaven, but maybe it's a 5-minute stretching routine or clearing your desk completely before you start work, something that gives you that immediate task completed feeling.
Sets the tone.
Exactly. Second, prioritize physical health, not just for you, but for your presence. Implement a simple, efficient fitness routine you can actually stick with consistently, maybe those bodyweight exercises we talked about. Pay attention to nutrition for sustained energy and mental focus. Again, it's not about looking like a model. It's about radiating health, energy, vitality.
Makes sense. What else?
Actively develop high-value skills. This is huge for projecting competence. Identify skills that are genuinely valued in whatever field you're in or want to grow into. Could be coding, could be public speaking, persuasive writing, complex problem solving, negotiation.
Things that make you useful.
Right. And then dedicate focused time to actually learning and practicing these skills. Because tangible competence, actually being good at something valuable, builds genuine confidence. And that genuine confidence is something others definitely perceive.
Can't really fake real skill.
Not for long. And finally, a perhaps more superficial but still important point, pay attention to basic grooming and style.
Oh, do I need a whole new wardrobe?
Probably not. It's not about being a fashion icon. It's just about presenting yourself thoughtfully. Things like a decent haircut, clean clothes that fit reasonably well, basic skincare. It signals attention to detail, self-respect, and an awareness of how you're presenting yourself to the world. It's a simple way to project that you care, that you're put together.
It shows you've got the basics handled.
Pretty much. So the connection the sources are making here is fundamental. These seemingly simple, sometimes external-focused actions, they're powerful because they demonstrate discipline, self-respect, competence, vitality, all qualities that people are instinctively drawn to in any situation. They become the outward signs of the inner strength and the solid habits you've been building. You're not just being intelligent internally, you're starting to project intelligence and capability through your very presence.
Okay. Built the foundation, fortified the inner core, started projecting capability. The roadmap logically moves on from there.
Yeah.
Right. What's the next stage?
The next stage is about what happens after that initial impression, after you've maybe attracted some attention or interest. It's about deepening connections.
So moving beyond just making a good first impression.
Exactly. This is where the focus shifts to sustaining relationships, building real trust, creating lasting influence, and forming meaningful bonds with people. It's about nurturing the connections that your presence and capability might have helped initiate.
Okay, and what source material guides this part?
Here we see a return to Leo Lowndes' How to Talk to Anyone, but maybe digging into some more advanced techniques. Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers comes in strongly here, focusing on understanding others accurately. And Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last is back again, specifically for its emphasis on building deep trust.
So, How to Talk to Anyone gets more advanced here.
Yeah, beyond just starting conversations, this segment pulls techniques for building deeper rapport. Really tuning into body language cues, both sending and receiving, and methods for making people feel genuinely seen, heard, and valued on a more significant level. It's about forging connections that feel substantial, not just superficial pleasantries.
And talking to strangers. How does Gladwell's work help deepen connections? It sounds like it's about the difficulty of understanding strangers.
It is, and that's precisely why it's relevant here. Gladwell highlights the common pitfalls, the biases, the default assumptions like our tendency to default to truth and assume people are being honest that can lead to serious misjudgments in interactions, especially with people we don't know well.
So understanding those pitfalls helps us avoid them.
Exactly. By being aware of these challenges, we can approach interactions more consciously, be more careful in forming judgments, and importantly, know when we need to seek clarification to avoid misunderstandings. This helps make our connections more accurate, less prone to conflict born from misinterpretation.
Okay, be more cautious in assumptions. And leaders eat last comes back for trust.
Yes, because, according to Sinek, and the sources agree, deep trust is the absolute cornerstone of any lasting relationship, personal or professional. Trust isn't built overnight. It's built incrementally, through consistent actions that demonstrate you prioritize the well-being and safety of the other person.
The circle of safety idea again.
Right. It's about fostering that sense of security, loyalty, and connection through unwavering reliability, genuine empathy, and acting with integrity over time. That's how you deepen bonds.
So pulling these together, advanced rapport, avoiding misjudgment, building trust, what are the actionable steps for actually deepening connections?
Okay, a primary one, really emphasized in How to Talk to Anyone, is mastering active listening. And this is way beyond just not interrupting.
What does it involve?
Techniques like subtly mirroring the other person's body language. If they lean in, you lean in slightly, nodding, making those affirmative sounds like, yeah, go on. Asking good, open-ended questions that invite more than a one-word answer. And crucially, paraphrasing what they've said back to them. So if I understand correctly, you're feeling to confirm you've got it right. The goal is to make them feel like they have your undivided attention and that their message is truly landing.
Makes them feel heard.
Deeply heard. Second action, drawing from talking to strangers. Practice reading social cues and questioning assumptions. Don't just take every first impression or statement at face value, especially with people you don't know well. Be mindful of the potential for misinterpretation. Look for mismatches between words and body language. If something feels unclear or off, gently ask for clarification rather than jumping to conclusions. Could you tell me a bit more about that, or help me understand what you mean by?
Seek clarity, don't assume.
Exactly. Third, build trust consistently. This is the leaders eat last principle in action. It means doing what you say you'll do, being reliable, showing up on time, admitting when you make a mistake instead of covering it up, demonstrating through your actions consistently over time that you genuinely care about the other person's well-being and interests, not just your own agenda. Trust is earned deposit by deposit.
Takes time.
It does. And finally, practice empathy explicitly. Make a conscious effort to not just understand, but to acknowledge the other person's feelings and perspective, even if you completely disagree with their viewpoint.
How do you do that explicitly?
Use phrases that reflect their emotional state back to them.
Wow.
It sounds like that situation was really frustrating for you, or I can hear how passionate you are about this topic. Showing that you recognize and validate their feelings, even if you don't share them, is incredibly powerful for building connection and rapport.
Okay, so the sources are basically saying, look, projecting capability might get you in the door.
Right. It opens the door.
But it's these deeper skills, active listening, understanding accurately, building trust brick by brick, showing real empathy. That's what actually sustains and deepens relationships.
Absolutely. This is where your intellectual understanding of, say, psychology meets your emotional intelligence, recognizing and managing feelings, and your social skills, applying the right techniques at the right time. It's a much higher form of intelligence in action, creating those meaningful human bonds.
Which leads us then to the stage that seems to tie so much of this together, the art of expression, or put simply, talking.
Yes. All that inner work you did, the presence you've cultivated, the relationships you're trying to build, a huge part of how that manifests and gets solidified is through communication. How you actually articulate your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, how you engage verbally with others. Mastering this is essential if you want to leverage all that intelligence you've been building.
Makes sense. You got to be able to express it. What sources are key here?
It's primarily How to Talk to Anyone and Talking to Strangers again, but now focusing very specifically on the how-to of verbal and nonverbal communication itself.
Okay, so what techniques does How to Talk to Anyone offer for just talking better?
Lowndes' book is like a gold mine for specific practical techniques to make conversations more engaging, more memorable. It covers how to initiate smoothly, how to keep the conversational ball rolling, and maybe most importantly, how to make the other person feel really good during the interaction.
Like that big baby pivot thing. mentioned in the outline.
Exactly. It sounds funny, but the principle is solid gold. When someone is talking to you, you turn your entire body and attention towards them, fully. Give them that kind of undivided focus, like a parent gives a baby who needs something. It non-verbally screams, "You are important and I am fully listening." It makes people feel incredibly validated and heard.
Powerful. And talking to strangers comes in again how?
It continues to hammer home that point about clarity and being super mindful of assumptions during verbal exchanges, especially when you don't know the other person's background or context well. It reinforces the need to articulate your own points clearly, and again, that willingness to ask clarifying questions to bridge potential gaps in understanding that inevitably arise when people come from different perspectives or experiences. Don't assume they get your jargon or your references.
Spell things out a bit more.
Yeah, err on the side of clarity. So let's look at the actionable steps the sources pull out for mastering this art of expression, of talking effectively.
Okay.
One key step is practice small talk. Don't blow it off as trivial. It's the social lubricant, the gateway to deeper conversation. The source suggests having a few easy, open-ended, low-stakes questions ready to go. What brings you here today? What's keeping you busy lately? What are you enjoying most about this event?
And techniques to keep it going.
Yeah, like parroting. It sounds simple, maybe even silly, but it works. Just repeat the last few key words the person said, maybe with a slight questioning intonation. Oh, digital marketing. It prompts them to elaborate naturally without you having to rack your brain for the next brilliant question.
Keeps the ball in their court.
Exactly. Second action, use positive body language consciously. We touched on this for projection, but it's crucial during conversation too. Your nonverbals are shouting messages constantly. Maintain comfortable eye contact, not staring, but connecting. Offer genuine smiles. Use open postures, uncross your arms, face the person squarely. These signals make you look approachable, engaged, confident. They invite connection.
Actions speak louder.
They really do. Third, actively avoid miscommunication. Make it a habit, especially if the topic is important or complex, to pause and check for understanding. Ask clarifying questions if you're unsure about anything they said or meant, and rephrase their point back to them to confirm. Okay, so just to make sure I'm following, you're saying that. This catches errors early and shows you genuinely care about getting it right.
Prevents arguments later.
Definitely. And fourth, develop storytelling skills. Learn to share concise, relevant stories. People are wired for narrative. Information wrapped in a story is way more memorable and emotionally engaging than just spitting out dry facts or opinions. Practice telling short anecdotes that illustrate a point or connect with the other person's experience.
Make it relatable.
Exactly. So this whole segment really drives home the point. Having knowledge is great, having a strong inner core is essential, but it's only fully leveraged when you can effectively share it and connect with others through skilled communication. It's the bridge.
Yeah, the bridge that lets your internal intelligence actually show up and have an impact in the world.
Precisely. And mastering these specific techniques, small talk, body language, clarification, storytelling, can really elevate your everyday interactions. It makes you not just smart, but effectively, intelligently communicative.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on the interpersonal side. But the roadmap doesn't stop there, does it? The sources identify other critical areas, pillars that support everything else.
That's right. This next segment focuses on what the sources term the pillars of holistic intelligence. It broadens the definition beyond just the cognitive or social skills to include some really fundamental aspects of life management and overall well-being.
Holistic, meaning it affects the whole person.
Exactly. And here the sources draw heavily on Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad for financial intelligence, The Sleep Solution, or similar, Works for Recovery, and they revisit that theme of continuous learning, pulling from books like Think and Grow Rich and 7 Habits again.
Okay, let's take the first pillar. Financial intelligence from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Why is managing money part of being an intelligent human?
The source emphasizes that understanding money, how it works, how to manage it, save it, invest it, how to build assets that generate income, isn't just about chasing wealth for its own sake.
It's about more than being rich.
Much more. It's fundamentally about gaining independence. Reducing what is, for many people, a massive source of stress and anxiety. When you're constantly worried about money, it consumes huge amounts of mental and emotional energy. Getting a handle on your finances frees up that capacity. It provides a foundation of security that allows you to actually focus on other areas of growth, learning, relationships, health.
Financial stress is a huge drain.
Huge. So the actionable step here. First, create a simple budget. You need to know where your money is actually going. Track your spending for a month or two. Second, Aim to save a consistent portion of your income. The sources suggest aiming for 10–20%, maybe more if possible. Pay yourself first. And third, actively learn about basic investing concepts. Understand things like compound interest, diversification, the difference between assets and liabilities. You don't need to become Warren Buffett overnight, but grasping the fundamentals is crucial for long-term security and independence.
Okay, pillar 1, financial stability. What's the second pillar?
Sleep and recovery. Drawing from works like Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep or The Sleep Solution, the sources are adamant about this. Quality sleep is completely non-negotiable.
More important than we think.
Way more important. It is absolutely essential for pretty much everything. Cognitive function, consolidating memories, learning, regulating your emotions, physical recovery from exercise or illness, your immune system, overall resilience. The list goes on. Chronic sleep deprivation actively undermines all the other efforts you're making towards becoming more intelligent and effective. It impairs your judgment, your focus, your mood, your decision-making.
So skimping on sleep is counterproductive.
Massively counterproductive. The actionable step. Prioritize getting 7–8 hours of quality sleep consistently, not just catching up on weekends. Establish a relaxing bedtime routine, dim lights, maybe read a physical book, take a warm bath, something that signals to your body it's time to wind down. And this is a big one for many of us. Avoid screens, phones, tablets, laptops, TV for at least an hour before bed. That blue light seriously messes with your melatonin production, your natural sleep cycle. Treat sleep like it's as important as your diet or exercise, because it is.
Okay, finance, sleep. What's the third pillar?
Continuous learning. This theme pops up in many of the sources, but it's highlighted here as a distinct ongoing pillar. The journey to becoming an intelligent human, as defined here, never really ends. The world keeps changing, knowledge evolves, and personal growth requires maintaining a relentless curiosity, a commitment to constantly acquiring new information, new skills, new perspectives. You can't just rest on what you learned last year.
Lifelong learning.
Exactly. The actionable step. Make learning a daily habit. Commit to reading, say, 10–20 pages a day from insightful, challenging books, maybe some of the ones we've discussed, or others in areas you want to grow. Or dedicate a specific time slot each day to learning a new skill, maybe through an online course, practicing an instrument, whatever stretches you. Actively seek out new information and diverse perspectives. Stay curious. Stay humble about how much there still is to learn.
So these three pillars, financial intelligence, sleep, continuous learning, they're like the support system for everything else.
That's a perfect way to put it. The sources frame them as essential supports. True intelligence, in this holistic view, isn't just about your brain power in isolation. It's about effectively managing your physical well-being, sleep recovery, your financial security, and your ongoing intellectual development. If you neglect any of these fundamental supports, it will ultimately limit your progress and effectiveness in all the other areas: the habits, the inner core, the relationships, the communication.
They're the background conditions that enable everything else to actually function well.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, wow. We have covered a ton of ground. The foundation of time and habits, building the inner core, projecting capability, deepening connections, mastering communication, and now these essential supporting pillars. That's a comprehensive roadmap.
It really is. It touches on so many facets of life.
So the big question then is, how do you take all these different pieces, all these principles from different books, and actually live it? How do you put it all together?
Yeah.
That's the final segment, right? Integrating the roadmap.
Yes, and this is where the sources make a really vital point. The real power, the transformation, doesn't come from just knowing about all these principles or even from reading all the books individually. It comes from consciously, consistently integrating them into your actual life, weaving them together into a cohesive plan, a rhythm.
So it's not just a checklist of things to know.
Not at all. It's about creating a synergistic system where the parts support each other. And they're also careful to point out it's not necessarily a strictly linear process. You don't, perfectly master your inner core and then start working on communication.
They overlap and influence each other.
Exactly. They build upon and reinforce each other simultaneously. Your inner work makes your external presence more authentic. That presence helps you initiate relationships. Your communication skills allow you to navigate those relationships effectively. And all the while, your foundational habits, your financial stability, your sleep, your ongoing learning, they're providing the fuel and the capacity for all of it.
It's an ecosystem.
That's a great word for it. And to make this integration feel less abstract, more concrete, the sources actually offer up a sample weekly plan.
Oh, interesting. Like a template.
Sort of. It's presented not as this is the only way, but as one tangible example of how someone could structure their week to deliberately weave these principles in.
Yeah.
It helps make the whole roadmap feel more practical, less theoretical.
Okay, walk me through what that sample plan looks like.
All right, so for a typical Monday to Friday, it starts, unsurprisingly, with that structured morning routine we discussed earlier. Waking early, 5 a.m. is the example given, doing that immediate daily discipline win, making the bed, and then hitting the 20-20-20 block. Exercise, meditation, reflection, reading, learning.
Okay, starts the day strong. What about during the workday?
During the daytime, the focus is heavily on applying the 80-20 principle. That means consciously identifying and dedicating focused work blocks to those one or two high-impact tasks that really move you towards your significant goals, avoiding getting sucked into reactive busy work.
Protecting that deep work time.
Exactly. And they also suggest actively practicing one specific conversation skill each day. Maybe today you focus on active listening, tomorrow on using positive body language, pulling from how to talk to anyone. Just one small skill to practice consciously in at least one interaction.
I like that. Small, focused practice.
Okay.
What about evenings?
Evenings in this sample plan involve a couple of things. Maybe a quick review of finances, checking the budget, tracking savings goals, journaling or using that habit tracker to note consistency on the habits you're building. And then, crucially, intentionally winding down to protect that 7-8 hours of quality sleep. No late night screens or stressful work right before bed.
Protecting the sleep pillar.
Absolutely. Then for the weekends, the sample plan suggests a slightly different rhythm. Less rigid structure, maybe more focus on reflection and application in lower pressure settings.
Like what?
Maybe taking some time to reflect on your core values and long-term goals from 7 Habits. Practicing social skills in more casual environments, striking up a conversation at a coffee shop. Maybe being mindful of those, talking to strangers, insights about assumptions. And also using some weekend time to plan out the upcoming week's priorities, identifying those high-impact 80-20 tasks for Monday.
So planning ahead for the next week.
Right. Using the weekend for reflection, practice, and preparation.
Okay, so the big takeaway from this integration part, and really from the whole roadmap laid out in these sources, is that this isn't just intellectual curiosity. It's not a list of good ideas to just know about.
Not at all. It's meant to be lived, embodied. The sample plan just shows one way it's possible to actually weave these diverse principles into the fabric of your daily and weekly life.
And the advice is to start small, right? Don't try to overhaul everything overnight.
Absolutely crucial advice from the sources. Don't try to implement all 50 things at once. You'll likely burn out and quit. Pick just 1 or 2 areas to focus on initially. Maybe it's just nailing that morning routine consistently. Or maybe it's just tracking one key habit, like reading 10 pages a day. Build consistency and confidence there first, and then gradually, intentionally, layer in more.
Small steps, compounding effect, back to atomic habits.
Exactly. It's about conscious, consistent application and realizing that becoming this intelligent human is an ongoing process. It's evolution, not revolution.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up then. As we finish this deep dive into this specific set of source material on becoming an intelligent human, what's the core concept we should walk away with?
I think the core concept, pulling it all together from these sources, is that it's a dynamic, lifelong journey. It's about intentionally cultivating this blend of skills, intellectual, emotional, social, and then, this is the key part, consistently applying them through disciplined habits and mindful, deliberate action. It's about continuous personal growth through conscious effort.
It starts with that bedrock foundation, getting your time and habits in order. That enables everything else.
Right. Then you move inward, building that strong inner core mindset, resilience, self-awareness, values.
From that inner strength, you learn to project capability and confidence outwardly, which helps you connect with others.
Then you deepen those connections through trust, empathy, and skillful listening. And all of this is expressed and amplified through mastering the art of effective communication.
And holding it all up, supporting the whole structure, are those essential pillars. Financial well-being, prioritizing sleep and recovery, and committing to that continuous lifelong learning.
That's a great summary of the roadmap.
You know, there's a quote from the source material itself that seems to capture the essence of everything we've discussed today. It says, intelligence isn't just about knowledge. It's about applying it wisely in your habits, relationships, and growth.
That really does nail it, doesn't it? It's the wise application that makes the difference. So, considering this whole comprehensive roadmap we've unpacked, drawn entirely from this curated set of sources, maybe the question to leave everyone listening with is this. Where in your own life right now is one small area? Maybe it's implementing just one tiny habit from James Clear, or clarifying just one core value, like Covey suggests, or consciously practicing just one conversation technique from Leo Lowndes, or maybe dedicating just 20 minutes a day to focused learning. Where could you apply just a piece of this wisdom starting today that you feel would have the biggest positive compounding impact on your personal journey towards becoming a more fully realized, more effective, more, well, intelligent human?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah,
It brings it right back to us right now. Not about perfecting the whole map overnight, but taking that first conscious step today.
exactly.
Well, this has been fascinating. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into these really thought-provoking sources.
My pleasure. Lots to think about, and more importantly, lots to potentially do.